It's time to be Tuesday. Sounds like crap, but hello there. I'm Scotty. You're not welcome to Tubi Tuesday. We're taking a look at The Changeling from 1980, starring George C. Scott, Trish Van Veer, and directed by Peter Maddock. This is a movie I hear talk about all the time. Oh my god, one of the greatest movies of 1980. It's one of the greatest horror movies from the 80s. This is great, and I think it's just okay. There are some things that they're really good. There's some things that they're boring. Not boring per se, but it just, I don't know. So I watched this on my phone during break, work, and in the van and stuff, and I was into it, but I can't help but feel that if I was home watching this, I would fall asleep. I know because I started dozing off when I started trying to finish it when I got home. So it is one of those, like, for me, early 80s horror movies don't always sit well for me. There's not a lot going on in those movies. And I don't know why. People are like, check this out, check this out, you gotta check this out. 1980, 1981, and then you sit there and you watch them and just like, I don't know. Now, Halloween 2 is one of the only ones I know from the early 80s that genuinely are as good. And 82 as Halloween 3, but the story with this film is that George C. Scott plays John Russell, whose family is killed in a horrible accident. I mean, horrible as in how it's set up. We'll get to it. He then later moves into this mansion of a house where he suffers from a haunting of this house, leading into a mystery about what actually happened in that house. And yeah. So first and foremost, I want to say that one of the best things about this movie is George C. Scott. Him and Trish Van Veer, I think I'm saying it right, who were married at the time, are great in this film. Like, their acting is some of the best. You know, and George C. Scott is one of those, when he yells, ah, you get that yell. And then Trish Van Veer is just, she's great. Like, there's a scene towards the end of the film where she goes in the house looking for John. She's yelling for him. She goes upstairs and she gets like attacked by this ghostly wheelchair, or the possessed wheelchair, whatever you want to call it. She runs down the steps and she finds John as he's coming through the door. And the way the actress like screams, the way she's acting is fantastic. And of course, George C. Scott, Academy Award winner, is great in this film. And there are some good moments of scares where it's just like, you know, where it builds tension and you feel that something, you know, is creepy in that house. There's big houses. I used to live in a big house. There's that unsettling feeling. I know what it is. That unsettling feeling of something is there. You don't know what it is. I still have to tell my haunted house story. I will eventually. But, you know, I get it. That unsettling feeling. And that, you know, just like that chill that runs down your spine. And you're not sure. It's that certain unsurety. You don't know. You don't know if there's something there or not. And I like the seance scene. There's a lot of seance scenes. And I'm pretty sure that Insidious copied this, because you have this woman, she's like the medium, and she's like writing stuff on the paper. And they did that in Insidious, but it's very effective here. They got the ambiance and everything. And visually, there's some good camera shots. There's shots where they make, you know, you see like a key on the piano play and there's no one there, or a door went behind. That's when it starts to get a little bit goofy to me. You have the ball rolling down the steps. Those are classic haunting cliches. Stuff just moving, you know. But the ball is the only one that's effective because that's the only one that he sees. The door opens and he kind of figures out something's right. He looks for the maid or whatever. And he's like, but he doesn't see the piano key. I don't know. And there are some good shots. Like towards the end, the house is on fire and it looks great. I mean, it looks great. The scene, spoilers of course, where the senator has a heart attack. He's looking at this metal. All of a sudden, like the guy's acting in that moment is fantastic. Just the way it looks. And the sound design in this film, it gets you. Like it really gets you. Like it hits you. Like it's an older movie, so they're using mono sound. So when you play it back now, it sounds really weird. Sometimes it can sound off, but this film, like, I had earbuds in when I was watching it earlier at work and stuff, and I had to go like this sometimes because the sound just, it's that mono sound. But for a haunted house flick like this, it works. However, those are my positives. What about negatives? When it comes to trying to present this as a haunted house, it works. But when you get into some of the story elements, it just doesn't make sense. So we find out, first and foremost, this movie starts off with a horrible accident. And I don't mean horrible as two people died, his family. No. What was this accident? What was it? So they're pushing their car. They're on some kind of trip, and they're pushing their car in the snow. And they stop at this payphone, because it's 1980, ain't got no cell phones. They stop at a payphone. He goes in to talk on the payphone, and all of a sudden, you get this truck coming from one way, a car coming from another, and the car just comes in. You don't even see them get hit. It just goes, whoop, and stops. And you're supposed to think that it hits them, and you're like, okay. And somehow he can't open. All of a sudden, he can't open the door of the phone booth. There had to be a better way to orchestrate this. It looks terrible. It does. Also, what does him losing his family add to this story? Yes, I think maybe it drives him more to figure out what happened to this kid because he lost his own daughter, so that it affects him. But you could have moved him in there with his family, and I don't think there would be anything different. Like, for instance, there's this whole thing with some other lady, and her daughter keeps seeing like a ghost. They had the seance, and they said that they saw a little boy. She says she saw a little boy coming out of the floor, and that leads them to the metal. But if you took that out and made it his own daughter, you could say she was seeing something from her room, and that is, the metal is there. You could have, you could have taken the whole thing out, keep the family in there. It would have made more sense. I do like, though, that they don't try to push a love interest on him. Like, there's Tris Van Medier's character is played by his actual wife, but she's not a love interest. She's just a friend, someone there to help him. I like that. So it's not like, oh, your wife's dead. Let's go hook up, have old people sex. No. He's about 50 or 60 years old at this point. So I'm just saying. No. And what's more is the story itself. So we find out the reason for this haunting is that there is a child named Robert Carmichael. The only problem is that's the senator's name. We find out that the Carmichael's father murdered Robert. He was in a wheelchair. He murdered him. I don't know if they said it was an accident or not, but he murdered him in a bathtub, I think. And then got rid of the body, buried it in some other house. I don't know. And he was in a wheelchair, by the way. He adopted another kid, took it to Europe, and then brought him back sometime later and said, look, he's cured, he can walk now. And this guy has been Robert Carmichael for 70 years and is now senator. Bull fucking shit. You cannot just do that. One, he would not look the same. There would be people who knew what the real Robert looked like. Two, DNA. What if you had to go to a doctor's appointment, right? What if they had to use something from the real Robert? Huh? You cannot just get away scot-free. Whether or not you have the money or power to do so, it makes no sense. I get if this was 20 years later. Maybe 10. 10, maybe 20, I guess I should say it that way. 70? This guy has sit in a lap of luxury for 70 years. He's a U.S. senator. But, I don't know. You wouldn't be able to keep it quiet after that. I'm sorry. All the money in the world couldn't keep something like this quiet. It just, when they reveal this, I'm like, what? No, that makes no sense. Like, how would they not be able to tell it was a different kid? Did they make the kid have plastic surgery? And all of a sudden, they would believe the, oh, he can miraculously walk now story? No, it makes no sense. And what's more is this ghost, as much as fantastic as the climax of this film is, this ghost goes from help me, to now I'm gonna fucking kill you in an instant. Burning down the house. Like, he asks for help. He seems like he's a ghost that just wants the mystery to be finished. But then all of a sudden, because we need big climax at the end, he's gotta be a I'm gonna kill you now ghost and set the house on fire and chase you down with a wheelchair ghost, even though there's no reason to. Because we need something for the climax or it'll be boring. And there's this detective that shows up, set by the senator, and we see that everyone affected by this is either in the house or is close to something connected to the house. Like the little girl getting haunted by the spirit of the boy because the medallion was there, right? The medal was there. People that go in the house, they are attacked, killed in the house. The detective shows up, he barely steps in the house, he leaves and gets into a car accident and dies. He wasn't even in the house, he barely went in the house. He had nothing from the house. Reaching, aren't we? It just, to me, it felt like, oh, we need one more kill here in the middle of the film. Because otherwise people will say it's boring because there's a lot of talking stuff. I didn't hate this film, okay? I thought there were some genuinely good moments in this movie. I just felt like when you start to get into the mystery, into the story, the explanation, the execution of it just doesn't work. It doesn't work for me. It's a head scratcher, really, because it's like they would be able to figure out this isn't that kid. Especially after 70 fucking years. You're saying for 70 years he was using the identity of Robert Carmichael and no one figured it out. The excuse in The Omen was more plausible. Switching out the babies, that was more plausible. Esther being actually 30 years old and the orphan is more plausible. She has like a dwarfism. The prequel, where she's now played by a 20-something-year-old, probably not. I'm going to react to that trailer eventually. I'm waiting for the Halloween and this trailer to come out. But I digress. For me, when it comes to the Changeling, I almost said Omen and Orphan. Changeling. By the way, do you know what their explanation for the Changeling is? Like why I call it that? One throwaway line where George C. Scott has an argument with the senator and says, it's you're the Changeling. And I'm like, that seems like they had the name for the movie. Like they filmed this without having a name for the movie. And then at the last minute, like, let's call it the Changeling. And then said to George C. Scott, you're going to throw that line out at least once in this movie so it makes sense. That's what it sounds like to me. But anyway, when it comes to the Changeling, it sits firmly in the middle of the road. Because there was some really good stuff, and there was some really stupid stuff. And I just can't give it any higher than that. I'm sorry. I know people say this is a horror classic, and when it comes to the horror elements, I agree with you. But when it comes to the mystery and trying to solve stuff, no. No, it does not. It it comes up short for me and just doesn't work. So, what are your thoughts on the Changeling? I kind of went off into a rant there, but didn't mean to. So, what are your thoughts on the Changeling? Like, comment below, like, share, subscribe. Thanks for watching. I've been Scotty, and I'll see you in the next one.